Welcome in. This is the Big Ten in 10. I am Vaughn Dalzell, a college basketball betting analyst at NBC Sports. And alongside me is a familiar face for all college basketball fans, Robbie Hummel, college basketball analyst for the Big Ten, NBC, and Fox Sports. And on this, we're going to cover the Big Ten in 10 minutes, Robbie. So I'm excited to hear what you got to say, starting with the Wisconsin Badgers, because they are a team, a lot of guys, a lot of experts thought we're going to be very good this season with a lot of minutes back. And they've been just that, 11-3 with a 3-0 start in conference play.
Yeah, and I think that with Wisconsin, you had this core of players who had played so many games for the Badgers. You look at Chucky Hepburn, you talk about Stephen Crowell, Tyler Wall. Those three guys have been such staples of what they wanted to do. Last year's team, though, the depth just wasn't there. You still have Connor Essegian. You still have some of their role players, but adding A.J. Storr and John Blackwell, I think, has changed the dynamics of this team. Storr, a 6'8", athlete that can get to the rim, is someone that Wisconsin just hasn't had a player like that when you look at their roster since maybe Alondo Tucker. And that's not to compare him to Alondo Tucker because that's rare air. And then John Blackwell, for a freshman, just has incredible feel, whether it's him cutting, stealing buckets, getting to the offensive glass, shooting a good percentage from three. And you know kind of what you're getting from Wisconsin's big three from last year. The crazy part has been Connor Essegian, all freshman team last year, hardly has played. Had a breakout game against Nebraska, 12 points, but only played 12 minutes. So I like their depth. I like their guard play. And I think that Wisconsin certainly is going to be a team that factors heavily into the Big Ten title race.
Yeah, I like what you said there, because I was going to ask you if they're the biggest threat to Purdue, because eighth in minute continuity from last season, 71% of the minutes back from last year. They're the 52nd most experienced team in the country. A lot of guys you said gives them that depth. And they have size. I mean, their three losses, Arizona, Tennessee, and Providence, are three good teams to lose to when you're talking about resumes for March. So are they the biggest threat to take down the Purdue Boilermakers, who are my most surprising team?
I think they are. I had thought that I needed to keep Illinois in that number 2 spot until they proved to me that they shouldn't be there. And there's no shame in losing at Purdue. I think a lot of teams, the way that Illinois competed and hung in there in West Lafayette, they deserve some credit for that. But without Terrence Shannon suspended indefinitely, and who knows if he'll play again this season, I think it has to go to Wisconsin the way they beat Nebraska, a Nebraska team that has been one of the pleasant surprises in the Big Ten Conference. So, yeah, I would say that with their experience, with the guys that they've got back and the guys they brought in, I would say that Wisconsin right now, to me, is the biggest threat to Purdue.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. I placed a wager back day after Christmas, Purdue to win the Big Ten after they lost to Northwestern. Since then, 7 straight wins for them. They're now minus 230 odds to win the Big Ten. And I think everything I disliked about them last year when I called them fraudulent entering March was because of the freshman guard play.
Yep.
But we've seen Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith take huge leaps. Last year, they were 289th in experience. This season, they are 84th, and they have not 71% of their minutes back. So I've loved them. Are they the best team hands down in the Big Ten? And do you think they are the best team in the country?
I do think that they're the best team in the Big Ten, and I think they are the most proven, and I would say the best team in college basketball. They have a profile that fits one of a national champion. They're top 5 in offensive efficiency. They're top 10 in terms of defensive efficiency. And I agree with what you said. Their guard play has changed kind of the way that you look at Purdue. And Braden Smith is, to me, the biggest part of that. You've got a point guard that is super confident and super comfortable in pick and roll. He's looking for his own this year. Last year, I thought at times it was too much of Braden Smith coming off of ball screens and just looking to throw it to Zach Edey. This year, if you're in that drop, man, he's coming off and he is looking to pull from 15 feet, from 3. It hasn't mattered. So I think he really changes their ceiling. You mentioned Fletcher Lawyer, a little bit inconsistent, but combustible. 27 against Tennessee, 27 against Arizona. You do that against those guys, you can do it against anybody, but he hasn't maybe been as consistent as Purdue would like to see offensively. And then I think Lance Jones also gives them something, a bulldog defender, a guy that thrives in transition. And I think that's a place where Purdue is a little bit different this year as well. It's not always just a slog to throw it into your 7'4", national player of the year, who we haven't even talked about yet. They can be opportunistic. They're not playing crazy fast. Their average offensive possession length is like middle of the pack in college basketball, but they will, when they have chances to run, whether it's Braden Smith, Lance Jones, Cam Heide, a guy that's really athletic, they will get out and run in the open floor. And then, crazy, we haven't even talked about this dude yet, but Zach Edey has played even better than last year, where he was the National Player of the Year. Trey Kaufman-Renn's someone to watch as well. He had a great game against Illinois, and we'll see if he can maybe build on that going forward.
Yeah, Purdue certainly not as reliant on Zach Edey this season as they were last year, and that's paid dividends to the success. The most impressive resume in college basketball in a lot of people's opinions. And I want to transition to ask you because there's a guy that's starting to make noise in the Big Ten, and that's Mackenzie Mbaku. Mm-hmm. Now, he won Big Ten Freshman of the Week this past week. I'm sure you've got to see him up close and personal calling games. From November 26th to December 29th, Robbie, an 8-game stretch, 13.1 points, 5.5 rebounds, and over 24 minutes per game. Where does Indiana factor into your Big Ten contention here with the Purdues of the world?
That they are an interesting team because they have gotten off to a good start in conference play, 3-1. Lone loss at Nebraska, no shame in that. I think for the Hoosiers, it was, I would say, a disappointing non-conference just because of the fact that they did beat who they were supposed to beat, didn't do it necessarily in impressive fashion. That Army game, Army's one of the, they're 300-plus team in KenPom. That was a struggle. Florida Gulf Coast was a struggle. Wright State was a struggle. The Harvard game wasn't necessarily a convincing win. They figured it out late in that second half. And then when you look at when they played the best teams on their schedule, Kansas missed opportunity, played well, weren't able to close it out. Connecticut, that was a disappointing game. The Auburn game, 30-point loss in a neutral site contest. So a little bit maybe disappointing in their non-conference, but in conference play, 3-1 is a good start. With Mbaku, love his offensive talent, and I think that they need his shooting and certainly his ability to come off pin downs and make shots, the three-point shooting, that's great. Defensively, though, he still has to be better. He still has to be better defensively, and for a lot of freshmen, that's the case. He's not alone amongst freshmen in college basketball struggling on that end of the floor. But, yeah, good to see him kind of finding his rhythm. To me, though, for Indiana, I like their bigs. Khalil Ware has been good. Malik Renew has been great. I still think that this team's ceiling depends on their guard play. Xavier Johnson coming back from injury. Gabe Cupps has played a lot of minutes and maybe more minutes than he would normally have been asked had they been healthy. And then Trey Galloway. Those guys have got to play well because they're not deep at guard. And college basketball is a guard's game. Someone's got to get those bigs the ball. And I think for Indiana, not a bad shooting team by percentage. They've shot the ball okay from a percentage standpoint, but just not high in volume. That Ohio State game, I want to say they took 12 and Ohio State took 28. You think about and I'm not the biggest analytics guy in the world, but when you're talking about getting that many more cracks at three, and it's a hard thing to overcome. So I worry about them with their guard play. Can Xavier Johnson stay healthy? And can they make enough threes to maybe overcome what other teams are going to be doing?
So you talked about the three-point area. I'm concerned about the free throw area for Indiana. That's a point they've really struggled in, 67 to 68% as well. And they're getting 22%.
They get there enough. They get there. They just don't make them, right?
Yeah, top 50 when it comes to getting there, but they're just not making them. An offensive rebound, they struggle. They don't force turnovers.
The rebounding against Ohio State also concerning. They got murdered on the glass. They have to be better.
Yeah, and they still squeaked away with a 6-point home win there. But being at home really pays dividends of Big Ten basketball as opposed to playing on the road here. So one more team to talk about before we talk about a few upcoming games in Peacock, Robbie. Michigan State. I don't know how high you were, but I felt like people were too high on the Spartans entering this year. And now they're in a sort of position where we can buy low or sell high on them. They won 5 straight, Baylor, Penn State, but then they lose by 14 at Northwestern on Sunday. Yeah. You buying or selling your stock on Sparty?
Oh, man, this is a tough question. You asked me yesterday at noon, I would have been like, buy.
Yeah, exactly.
But their defense had been unbelievable in that 5-game win streak. They were holding opponents to 63 points a game, and their field goal percentage was really low, doing a good job defending the three. That was not the case at Northwestern yesterday. I do feel like they have played better because the pieces around Tyson Walker have been better. A.J. Hoggard has played much better. Jay Nakins has played much better. Mady Sissoko has really rebounded the basketball, been good defensively in pick and roll. Malik Hall had been much better. 2 games prior to Northwestern was averaging like 23 a game. Yesterday, no points, 0-4, 2 turnovers. More turnovers than points. He is way too talented of a player to not score in a Big Ten game. And that's kind of been the story of his career. Been so up and down. Tyson Walker has been a rock. He has been a guy where they could count on him night in, night out. He's played like a first-team All-Big Ten selection, but the pieces around him have not been consistent. And I still think that Michigan State is going to get right because of the Tom Izzo factor. I kind of had my doubts after Nebraska. The way they started in conference play, not good. Two losses where they didn't look all that great. But I'm still going to buy. But that is a more hesitant buy than it would have been had this been yesterday.
Yeah, maybe not in January. In February, March, then we're buying into the Tom Izzo factor. I'll say that, Robbie. I mean, they do have 65% of their minutes back from last year. They got a good bench. They got a lot of experience. But, 38th toughest schedule. That'll probably buy you a 9-6 record and all 6 losses against teams in the top 100. So maybe, Robbie, they could be considered a dark horse in the Big Ten. But who would be your dark horse to take down Purdue in the Big Ten?
I can't take Wisconsin. They're not a dark horse in that, probably. I think I'll go with Wisconsin. I think I'll go with Wisconsin then. If I'm allowed to take them as a dark horse, even though they return so much, I like their depth. I think they have experience, and certainly that run to the NIT Final Four last year has springboarded them. And they don't have any bad losses. I think they have some of the better wins outside of Purdue in the Big Ten, and I just with their depth and some of their pieces, I'll go with Wisconsin as the dark horse to unseat Purdue.
Yeah, 100% agrees. I hate to agree with you there, but that is the only team I'm concerned with to take down Purdue in my Big Ten ticket here. They got all the length, the experience, and if they can stretch the floor and run with Purdue, they might be able to take them down there. But great stuff all around, Robbie. You got a busy schedule calling a lot of games this week, so we'll let you get out of here. But make sure you follow Robbie Hummel on X, and I'm Vaughn Dalzell at V-Money Sports as well. So this is the Big Ten in 10. Best of luck. Enjoy all the Big Ten basketball this week.